And there's a couple of things that we tend, again, as far as this particular area, just in highlighting, and I think this is quite a good reminder. It's not what you tell them, it's what they hear. And how often do we hear coaches say, but I told them. We went through it and we went through it. But again, it's not about us, it's actually about our players. Some of the questioning, again, we found that with the expert coaches, in the early stages, they will tend to use what and how type questions. The why questions, you need to have developed a very good rapport with your athletes first, because it's human nature that initially with a why question, a lot of people will tend to get quite defensive. So if you're still trying to get factual type information from them, we have a look as far as what their type of questioning is. And do coaches actually spend some time thinking about the type of questions they want to ask, whether it's in a team meeting or a training session? The timing of that particular message is going to be vital. And I think we all know, particularly on game day, as far as whether you're going to say something at that particular point or leave it till later in the week. Sometimes when giving feedback, again, we need to make sure we're having a look, is it about decision making, is it about technique, or is it about both? And some of those aspects as far as focus, we've then looked at in relation to this particular web-based online system that I was referring to. Excuse me. It's a case here where it's a secure site so that people can actually log in and upload particular sessions and can actually make some comments. And one of the reasons with having this, and I use it in my Masters of Sports Coaching course and also with some of the other elite coaches in Sydney, the time constraints of coaches, they often don't have access to other high-performance coaches as far as being able to go out to a training session. They very rarely get feedback, particularly if they're the head coach. And again, we're unsure as far as that self-reflection is concerned. So having this particular system, or even just encouraging coaches to video themselves, it allows them to actually have a look at their own practice. It has also allowed at times, when I went with the systematic observation earlier, that using this particular system, some of the coaches are able to go in and have a look at what their percentages are like. So how much of their practice sessions do they actually spend in the different types of instruction? And with this, it's just a case of playing. You'd start and stop a segment, a bit like editing any other type of football code. But you would select as far as our codes down here and continue on, which would give us a frequency and duration. I'm going to apologise because this is going to be an example using basketball. I did think that I'd probably have internet access, but I decided not to risk it. This is just demonstrating as far as how easy it is to use. Here's some video where it's already been coded. And again, this is an example as far as a national coach. And again, although it's basketball, at times with the football codes, they still want to have a look at other team sports. And in this instance, it's a case of actually having a look about a particular instruction style. A number of coaches are able to go in and make any comments that they would like as they go through that particular session. We can either ask them particular questions, or it's a case of them looking through the video and then deciding to comment on what they liked, what they perhaps think could have been improved, what might link as far as their own practice is concerned. Once you have coded, similar to a lot of the other software, in that drop-down menu you can actually have a look and select, for example, feedback, and then go and have a look at those particular edits. So that's just an example as far as the type of things you can do with it. I also use this particular system where we upload their own coaching practice sessions, their team meetings, and also in class we do some role plays as far as coach-athlete meetings. And again, they get a chance as far as having a look at things like body language. Did that convey the same message as what I thought I was actually saying within those? And the ideal aspect of this is that they don't have to be on campus, they can be interstate or anywhere in the world. They can log in and actually have a look and make comments as far as these particular sessions, which some of the coaches have been doing while I've been over here. So again, this one is just an example as far as one of the role plays, where again they went in, it might have been a 10-minute video, they're able to go in and make particular comments and give feedback. That was the drop-down menu as far as, again, once you label a particular aspect, it will show just that particular edit with the comments. Again, this particular role play, the actual coach and the player then went in giving their perspective on how they thought things went. We've used it as far as team meetings are concerned. So this is one of the coaches as far as an under-18 football is concerned. And again, he was able to have a look at what his interaction was like, and other coaches went in and gave feedback. Some of the coaches have actually had the camera in their dressing room for the half-time, so they wanted to have a look, and they'd never thought to have a look as far as how they utilised that particular 10 minutes. And again, what their body language and what message is actually like. And this was a half-time as far as a semi-final a couple of weeks ago. They also upload as far as their training practice is concerned. So once we mic them up, they're then able to have a look as far as that session, a one-on-one session. And that's just an example as far as once they've viewed the video, then this is another coach of a different sport who has gone in and given a summary or an overview as far as what they thought of that particular session. So again, that coach actually then can have a look at that as far as feedback is concerned. Some of the coaches then will have a look at the conclusion of that in trying to get an action plan as far as going forward by looking at these three things, and they'll try to identify one or two underneath it as far as what I should keep doing, stop doing, and start doing. But rather than that being in relation to their players, it's as far as their own practice is concerned. Just some of the comments where the coaches actually made as far as what they learned in viewing some of the other coaching sessions. So up the top, Stephen's training session was long-winded and at times struggled to keep the attention of the athlete. This would deter the athlete from gaining his full learning potential. The information given was accurate but not brief and concise. I enjoyed Greg's training session. It gave me a direct comparison to what I was doing. He used a lot of open questions to get feedback from the players. He gave his players a good amount of avenue for problem solving by not over-coaching. His tone and demeanour meant he was very much in control but had a relaxed environment for the players to learn and explore. So that was an assistant coach looking at a coach at a higher level within the same sport. Again, that's another one that took a take-home message. After watching numerous coaches' tapes and video clips, one of the specific items I'm going to implement this weekend in our game is the use of the assistant coach and me to provide individual feedback to each player at half-time of our game. So we saw a particular strategy that someone else used, was in a dressing room, so normally he wouldn't have access to that, and was able to implement. Again, just some of the coaches as far as their own self-reflection when they got the feedback back to it. As far as some of those benefits. And I go through, feedback was quite helpful, in particular the comments about being too serious. I've been weighing up whether I'm too serious or too relaxed as a coach. Upon reflection, I think that I perhaps vary too much and need to become more consistent. So generally, in summarising, it's a case of it allows honest feedback. It's a fairly safe environment, so you need a login system. Some of the coaches looked at it as far as an opportunity to give good feedback and receive feedback as far as their own practice. Identified strengths and areas to improve. They were quite surprised at some aspects of it, but found then that their reflections were certainly more accurate and increased as far as their confidence was concerned. So again, it's just a summary, and whether you use that particular system or, as I said, suggesting as far as where we start to really code what players do during training sessions, can we now have a look as far as coaches, and can we try to tailor as far as making them more effective, particularly in the areas as far as the amount of instruction and the type of activities that they actually program. Thanks very much. As I'm chairing the session, I'll just ask if there's any questions.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for your presentation. I just have one question.
Sure.
Sarcasm in coaching. Often I find that it can be both positive and negative, depending on the trust relationship you have with your players. How did you classify that in the feedback that you were giving to coaches, if they were sarcastic in their comments?
Sarcasm, it's interesting, certainly as far as the literature. So depending on the instrument that you use, sarcasm will actually be a particular code. And what we found is that in most instances, there's very low amounts of sarcasm. And most of the literature in a coaching environment where it's in with a team, they would tend to suggest not using sarcasm because, again, it can often be taken the wrong way. And as you said, if you've developed a very good rapport, then if it's a one-on-one type situation, you may get away with it. If it's in that team environment, the suggestion is don't use it just in case. But that is at times part of the coding. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you notice with that use of video whether the coach, when he first starts, feels like he's on stage or she's on stage and it becomes a little bit artificial, that they know they're being watched? Is there any sense that they're not really themselves?
No, it's interesting that certainly when you talk to them, they are concerned as far as that, like particularly when you're micing them up. And the other thing, I guess, in a team meeting type environment, if there's a camera somewhere. But for the majority of them, once they go through that first 2 to 3 minutes, they're so immersed as far as the practice or within the meeting, the majority of them forget that it's there. And the other things that we've done, particularly as far as some of the practice session, even with juniors, that at times when they've known what we've even been looking for, that behaviour hasn't changed, it's been quite consistent. So at times they are aware, and at other times I'll just rock up as far as we're going to view this. So perceptions, they will say that yes, they're worried a little bit beforehand. Once or twice you'll sort of see them going through, and at times you'll actually see, particularly in a dressing room or in a team meeting, when they glance at the camera, you sort of see that, oh, so nearly that reminder, and then they just go on with it again. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Donna, for a nice presentation. Is there any research on coaching practices and behavior in different cultures?
No, there isn't. I think it would be a great study to actually have a look at. Certainly, if I use rugby league, which is the sport that I've probably done more work with recently, then the coaches are becoming more aware, for example, if I look in Australia, as far as the increase in the Polynesian and Maori players within our particular sport, and they're trying to understand their cultures, so particularly when we start to have a look at the eye contact and certain other aspects and how they deal with that. We've at the moment got a qualitative study as far as asking them whether they change or what they do, whether they have any particular strategies. But as far as the video evidence of such, no, I'm not aware of any study that has had a look at that. And the same with from one country to another. So where I gave some of the slides previously, and a lot of the information is based in the US and their particular sporting system, which is very different to other areas, particularly when we take that culture into account, but that hasn't been looked at.